If the universe wants you to be with someone, it will send you these signs. When the soul is ready, its mate will appear. This timeless truth reminds us that the universe works in ways far beyond coincidence. In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we explore the powerful signs the universe sends when two souls are truly meant to be together. Insights inspired by the teachings of Carl Jung and the deeper currents of spiritual wisdom. These signs aren't just romantic, they're mirrors, guiding you toward healing, growth, and your highest self. As you listen, ask yourself, have you ever felt a connection so strong it defied logic? If so, comment below with your experience or simply type, "I trust the signs." Your story might inspire someone else. Let's dive in and learn how to recognize divine alignment in your own life. 1. Destined encounters are guided by the unseen. Some relationships feel too significant to be dismissed as mere chance. Carl Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, a meaningful alignment between what's happening within us and what we encounter in the world outside. When your thoughts, longings, or unresolved emotions mirror a real-life event, like meeting someone who feels uncannily familiar, or whose presence evokes something deep inside you that's not randomness. It's the universe creating a bridge between your soul and your experience, orchestrating an encounter that carries purpose beyond surface-level logic. This kind of meeting isn't always wrapped in fireworks or dramatic signs. Often, it's subtle: a delayed train, an unexpected conversation, or a casual introduction that slowly becomes meaningful. You weren't searching, and yet someone appears who seems to reflect your current season of life, your wounds, your hopes, your inner growth. According to Carl Jung, these encounters happen when your psyche is primed for transformation. The people you're meant to meet show up as mirrors, reflecting what you're ready to heal, embrace, or release within yourself. A modern example makes this clearer. A woman named Ava, recovering from heartbreak, had sworn off dating. She wasn't looking for anything when she reluctantly joined a friend at a silent meditation retreat. There, without speaking much, she noticed a man named Daniel, someone who carried the same quiet sadness she did. Over the next few days, through shared glances and brief words, a connection formed. It wasn't instant passion. It was soul recognition. Both had lost something, and both had reached a point in life where they no longer needed fixing. They needed understanding. That encounter wasn't planned, but it was precisely timed. Their connection wasn't about rescue. It was about reflection. The synchronicity brought them together at the exact moment each was ready to evolve. This is what Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The universe responds to the frequency of your inner world. If you're healing, you attract people who help you finish the process. If you're avoiding your truth, you meet people who force you to confront it. Either way, these are not coincidences. They're curriculum. They push you forward on your spiritual path. But not every connection is meant to last. Some people are soul activators, not soulmates. Their presence awakens something you couldn't access alone. They might challenge you, hurt you, or guide you, but they serve a purpose. And when that purpose is fulfilled, the bond may dissolve. It's painful, but it's also sacred. Because even endings carry meaning when viewed through the lens of spiritual wisdom. So when you feel drawn to someone in a way you can't explain, when your paths cross in a moment that feels unusually significant, take a step back. Don't ask if they're the one. Ask what part of your soul they've come to touch. Carl Jung believed that the universe doesn't send people randomly. It sends them when you're ready, not for fantasy, but for growth. If you've ever felt that a meeting was too perfectly timed to be random, you're not alone. These moments of synchronicity are the universe's quiet guidance. If you're open to recognizing the signs and deepening your spiritual journey, comment below. I trust divine timing. Let's awaken together. 2. The universe reflects the soul's inner journey. When two souls meet in a way that shakes the heart and stirs something ancient within, it is never a coincidence. It is the universe responding to the soul's cry for expansion. The encounter may seem sudden, even random, but it is rooted in a deeper spiritual wisdom that orchestrates meetings not just for comfort, but for transformation. When the universe wants you to grow, it often sends you someone who unlocks a hidden part of yourself. That person becomes a mirror, reflecting back your wounds, your desires, and the unconscious patterns you've yet to integrate. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the soul's journey toward becoming whole. And often, that journey begins with a person. Someone who arrives at just the right time, whose presence feels magnetic, who stirs up emotions you thought you had buried long ago. You may feel drawn to them for reasons that defy logic. That's because the connection isn't happening at the level of logic, it's unfolding at the level of soul. They don't just walk into your life. They arrive carrying lessons your spirit needs to evolve. They awaken what was sleeping. And through this emotional awakening, you begin to see what parts of yourself you've forgotten, rejected, or silenced. Sometimes these encounters are wrapped in deep intensity, filled with synchronicities and unexplainable signs. You keep seeing their name, hearing a song you both love, or dreaming of them before meeting. These signs aren't just coincidences. They are the universe whispering, "Pay attention." The timing, the connection, the impact, it all points to a deeper message. Spiritual wisdom teaches us to observe, to feel, to listen beyond the surface. Because beneath the physical encounter lies a sacred contract, written not in words, but in energy. Not all these people are meant to stay. In fact, many are not. Some arrive only to activate a shift within you, to remind you of your worth, your path, your buried purpose. It may hurt when they leave, but their departure is just as important as their arrival. They came to break you open, not to break you down. And in that breaking open, you are reborn. You begin to choose yourself. You begin to grow. This is the kind of love that transforms, not the kind that clings. What makes these connections unforgettable is not the duration, but the depth. They stretch your heart. They open your eyes. They awaken your soul's memory. You can't return to who you were before meeting them because they've activated a part of you that you can never unsee. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of meaningful coincidence, synchronicity. It is the universe's way of arranging people and moments not to control you, but to call you back to your essence. So when you meet someone who stirs your spirit and rearranges your inner world, don't rush to define it. Don't force it into a category. Instead, honor the role they play in your evolution. Some people are not meant to stay forever. They're meant to awaken the part of you that will. If this message resonates with your soul, take a moment and affirm it with faith. This connection is part of my inner journey. I trust the universe is guiding my growth. 3. Projection shapes how we experience love. In many intense relationships, what we call love is often a reflection of our own unconscious material. As Carl Jung taught, we don't just fall for another person, we fall into our own projection. We see our pain, hopes, and unresolved wounds mirrored in them, and it feels magnetic. But that magnetic pull is not always about the other person. It's about the part of you that wants healing, that longs to be seen, that has been waiting to be acknowledged. When you're going through a spiritual awakening, these projections become even more vivid. You begin to meet people who stir your emotions deeply, not because they're your perfect match, but because they reflect something buried inside your soul. Many people fall in love with what someone represents, not who they truly are. A person may symbolize safety, freedom, strength, or love, but what you're really drawn to is the part of yourself that feels missing. You're not just connecting to them, you're connecting to your unmet needs. That's the invisible architecture of projection. During a spiritual awakening, you start to recognize how often your emotional responses are not about others, but about unhealed versions of yourself. The person who pulls away might mirror your own tendency to emotionally withdraw. The one who seems emotionally unavailable may be reflecting your own abandonment of your needs. And the person who feels like a savior might be pointing to the part of you still waiting to be rescued. Jung believed that the soul seeks wholeness, and often it does so through the people we meet. Intense love, sudden chemistry, painful heartbreak. These are not just emotional events. They are spiritual messages. Sometimes the universe doesn't send you the one, it sends you a mirror. These mirrors don't always stay. They come to teach. They come to awaken. And when the lesson is learned, the connection may fade. But what remains is your transformation. That is the gift of projection when viewed through the lens of spiritual wisdom. You may ask, if love feels so real, why does it hurt? Because the ego clings to illusion, while the soul seeks truth. Pain is often the moment your inner self collides with the reality you've tried to avoid. But within that collision is an opening, the chance to meet yourself, the opportunity to stop chasing and start integrating. True love is not built on fantasy. It's built on presence, awareness, and inner alignment. It doesn't demand that others complete you. It invites you to complete yourself and then share that wholeness with someone who is also walking a path of conscious growth. So when someone triggers your deepest emotions, don't rush to define it as fate or mistake. Instead, ask, what part of me is being activated right now? What story am I projecting onto them? This is not self-blame, it's spiritual awakening. It's the beginning of loving clearly, not blindly. Because once you reclaim the pieces you've scattered onto others, you no longer love out of lack. You love with clarity, depth, and freedom. And that, perhaps, is the love the universe always intended for you to find. If this insight into love and projection speaks to you, don't hesitate to like the video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's grow in awareness and heal together. 4. Synchronicity reveals a deeper intelligence at work. Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity reveals that what we often call coincidence is far more than random luck. It's the universe communicating with us through meaningful patterns. When you think of someone and they suddenly call, or you feel drawn to a place you normally wouldn't go, only to meet someone significant there. That's not just chance. These moments are signs, messages from the unconscious, gently nudging you toward awareness and alignment. Especially in love, synchronicity can be a guiding force, helping you recognize when a connection carries a deeper purpose. These signs may come quietly. A song that echoes your inner feelings, a recurring number, or a dream that feels too vivid to ignore. You may cross paths with someone multiple times, in different places, under unlikely circumstances, and something inside you knows this is not random. Jung believed that the unconscious mind is not just internal, but connected to a collective source of wisdom that operates beyond time and logic. When two souls are meant to meet, the universe doesn't need to shout. It moves subtly, weaving threads of meaning through your everyday life. Consider the story of a woman who had recently gone through a painful breakup. She focused on healing, on finding herself again, until one afternoon, she decided last minute to attend a community event. She arrived late, stood in the back, and locked eyes with a man she felt she had known forever. As they spoke, they discovered strange parallels in their lives, growing up in nearby towns, knowing mutual friends, even visiting the same quiet bookstore every Sunday, yet never seeing each other until that moment. It felt like everything had conspired for that exact encounter, not to create a fairy tale, but to begin a chapter her soul had long awaited. Synchronicity in love often arrives not to confirm fantasy, but to awaken truth. These encounters can feel magnetic, intense, even unsettling, because they reflect back parts of yourself that are still longing for resolution. That's why Jung warned us that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. These moments are not here to promise you eternal romance, but to invite you deeper into your own healing and transformation. Love, in this sense, becomes a mirror, not just a comfort. When signs appear, don't rush. Observe. Reflect. Ask yourself what part of you this person awakens. Do they remind you of someone from your past? Do they challenge your patterns, your emotional needs, your sense of self? The universe isn't testing you, it's guiding you. The signs are not answers, they are invitations to grow. You may not end up with every person who arrives synchronistically in your life, but you will leave each encounter more aware, more conscious, more whole. This is spiritual wisdom in action. The more attuned you become to these signs, the more gracefully you navigate your relationships. You no longer seek love to complete you. You see it as a path to awaken what was sleeping inside. The connections you attract are no longer based on need or fantasy, but on resonance. And that is what Carl Jung truly meant. When your soul is ready, life will respond, not with force, but with quiet, undeniable truth. Do you believe that synchronicity is the universe's way of guiding you? If so, declare it boldly in the comments. I trust the signs. I am being guided. 5. Shadow work is triggered through relationships. Deep romantic relationships do more than connect two people. They awaken buried aspects of the soul. When we fall deeply in love, we don't just reveal our best selves. We also expose the hidden wounds, fears, and emotional patterns we've suppressed for years. This is where shadow work begins. In Jungian terms, the shadow is the unconscious part of us that holds everything we've rejected: pain, shame, insecurity, rage, vulnerability. And when love arrives, it doesn't only soothe, It stirs. It holds up a mirror to the parts we've tried to avoid. And suddenly, what seemed like a beautiful connection begins to feel raw, emotional, and intense. That intensity isn't a mistake. It's medicine. It's the soul's way of saying, this is where your healing lives. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that true love is not about comfort. It's about awakening. When someone triggers your insecurities, when their silence feels like rejection, or when their love feels too overwhelming to trust, it's not necessarily because something is wrong with them. It's because something unhealed within you is being activated. That activation is sacred. Triggers are not just emotional reactions. They're entry points into our deepest work. And if we have the courage to sit with them, to trace them back to their origin, we begin to reclaim the parts of ourselves we've abandoned. Love, then, becomes a mirror, not a solution. It doesn't fix you. It shows you where you've been broken. Imagine someone who constantly feels abandoned in relationships. Each time their partner is distant, they spiral into panic. But if they slow down and listen to the trigger, they might discover it's not their partner leaving. It's a childhood wound reawakening. That moment becomes an invitation to heal, not to run. In this way, the discomfort in love becomes a teacher. Emotional pain no longer signals failure. It reveals where love needs to go within. And when two people choose to do this inner work together, love evolves into something deeper than attraction. It becomes a space for spiritual transformation. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that the person who triggers you most deeply may also be the one sent by the universe to help you grow. Not all soulmates are meant to soothe you. Some are meant to stretch you. Some enter your life not to complete your story, but to help you rewrite it. They show up not just to hold your hand, but to hold up a mirror. Through them, your shadow becomes visible. Your pain becomes conscious. Your healing begins. This is not always easy, but it is sacred. Because to truly love another, you must first learn to meet yourself in the places you've been afraid to feel. Subscribe to our channel and join a community where deep love meets deep healing. Here, we explore how relationships awaken the shadow and guide us toward growth, wholeness, and spiritual wisdom. Remember, every part of you, light and shadow, is worthy of love and transformation. 6. Love becomes transformational when conscious. Love doesn't complete us. It reveals the hidden architecture of our inner world. It exposes the parts of ourselves we've buried, disowned, or misunderstood. Often, the people we are most drawn to serve as mirrors, not missing pieces. What you fall in love with may not be the person themselves, but what they awaken within you, a forgotten wound, a childhood hope, or an unintegrated shadow. As Carl Jung wisely said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And so, many of the relationships we label as fate are, in truth, spiritual assignments designed to wake us up. When we enter love unconsciously, we project. We assign roles to others based on our past pain. A cold partner may trigger our abandonment wound. A charming one may echo the conditional love we received growing up. This isn't just personal, it's archetypal. Love activates the unconscious, and through it, we relive old stories in new bodies. But once you become aware of these patterns, the game changes. What once felt like destiny becomes a choice. You're no longer seduced by intensity. You begin to seek depth. This is the gateway to mature love, the kind rooted in presence, not performance. Spiritual awakening asks you to take responsibility for your heart. Instead of chasing people to fix you, you begin the slow and holy process of returning to yourself. You stop begging for love and start becoming love. This shift is everything. When both partners come to a relationship as whole beings, not as saviors or victims, but as conscious mirrors, the bond becomes alchemical. Love transforms from an emotional high into a sacred space where truth, vulnerability, and healing can take root. It is no longer about avoiding pain, but about facing it together, with compassion and awareness. This kind of love doesn't control, it liberates. It doesn't depend on illusions. It thrives in reality. It sees the shadow and stays. It acknowledges the fear and still chooses softness. True love isn't found by searching outward. It's attracted by the frequency of someone who has made peace within. And once you vibrate at that level, you stop repeating cycles. You stop confusing familiarity with love. You stop mistaking chaos for passion. You begin to see clearly. The purpose of love is not to complete you, it's to expand you. In this light, love is not just a feeling, but a spiritual path. It teaches you more about yourself than any book ever could. It challenges your ego, invites your soul to the surface, and asks you to risk being seen. It calls forth the kind of growth that doesn't just change your relationships, but reshapes your entire being. And in that space, love becomes not only a connection, but a catalyst for transformation. If you're still here and this message is speaking to your heart, comment below. I'm choosing conscious love. Your voice matters, and your presence helps us grow this space for deeper, awakened connection. 7. Fated love is a catalyst for spiritual awakening. Fated love often comes disguised as chaos. It's not the kind of relationship that gently fits into your life. Instead, it feels like a collision, intense, inconvenient, yet deeply familiar. These relationships aren't here to make you feel safe. They're here to awaken you. They surface your insecurities, mirror your inner wounds, and demand transformation. And while that discomfort may tempt you to run, it's precisely in that friction that your soul begins to evolve. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Fated love is the mirror through which the unconscious becomes undeniable. It's the connection that arrives not to complete you, but to break you open. You don't meet this person by chance. The timing is too precise, the bond too deep, the lessons too tailored. Jung called it synchronicity, when meaningful coincidences align with your inner world. This kind of love feels like destiny because it's not born from your ego's desire, but your soul's calling. You may resist it. You may even try to rationalize it. But deep down, something within you knows, this is different. These relationships strip away everything superficial. They make you confront who you've been pretending to be. You can't hide. You can't fake it. And that's the gift. Because through this raw exposure, you begin the journey of spiritual awakening. You realize love isn't about possession or perfection. It's about evolution. The other person becomes a catalyst, not a crutch. They ignite your shadows and your light. They force you to integrate the parts of yourself you've long rejected. In real life, this might look like meeting someone when you're already in a perfect relationship, comfortable, predictable, and numb. Then suddenly, someone appears who sees you. Not the mask, not the role, but you. You argue, you get triggered, but you also feel alive. And even if the relationship doesn't last, the impact does. It's not about how long it lasts. It's about how deeply it transforms you. Carl Jung believed that through relationships, we encounter the hidden aspects of ourselves. So when you're pulled towards someone you can't explain, ask yourself, what is my soul trying to reveal? The truth is, fated love doesn't guarantee forever. It guarantees awakening. It burns away illusion. It cracks your identity. It opens your heart to truth. And while the other person may walk away, you're never the same. Because once you've met someone who shook your soul, you can't go back to sleep. You begin choosing truth over comfort, healing over hiding, growth over attachment. That is the real purpose of these connections, to return you to yourself. Fated love, through the lens of Carl Jung, is not about fantasy or idealization. It's about soul recognition. It's the universe holding up a mirror and saying, this is who you are, and this is who you are becoming. In their presence, you don't find completion, you find consciousness. And from that place, your real journey begins. If this message stirred something deep within you, leave a comment of truth. I believe in fated love and the awakening it brings. Your words might be the sign someone else has been waiting for. Let's grow together. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the signs the universe sends when someone is truly meant to be in your life. Whether through synchronicity, soul recognition, or subtle emotional shifts, the universe speaks if we're willing to listen. If this message resonated with your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Tap the notification bell so you won't miss our next video filled with insight, truth, and soul guidance. Until next time, stay open, stay aware, and trust the divine timing of your life. Carl Jung, How to Find Your True Self. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. In today's world, it's easy to lose yourself trying to fit in, playing roles, following expectations, and silencing your truth just to feel accepted. But deep within you is a self that longs to be remembered, reclaimed, and fully lived. In this video, we explore Carl Jung's powerful teachings on how to reconnect with your true self and begin a journey of spiritual awakening and personal freedom. As you watch, reflect on your own life. Are you living authentically, or are you living to please others? Comment below with one way you're choosing to live more truthfully today. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more soul-nourishing insights from Spiritual Wisdom. 1. The feeling of living someone else's life. You wake up every day, go through the motions, wear the same social mask, and do what's expected, yet deep down, something feels wrong. There's a quiet disconnection, a silent discomfort that you can't explain. You smile, you show up, you succeed even, but none of it feels real. It feels like you're following a script that was never written by you. Carl Jung believed this experience isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of awakening. He taught that most people live their lives trapped inside the persona, a mask we put on to survive, to be accepted, to feel safe. But over time, this mask becomes our prison. This is the moment when the true self begins to whisper. And then, slowly, that whisper becomes a roar. You start questioning everything about your job, your relationships, your goals. Whose dreams are you really chasing? Who decided what success looks like for you? From childhood, you've been molded to please parents, teachers, society. You've been rewarded for obedience, praised for compliance. And in the process, you've learned to betray yourself quietly, one small compromise at a time. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But that privilege requires courage. It means turning inward and facing the parts of you that you've buried beneath layers of expectations. It means confronting the truth that you've been performing, not living. And this awakening, this uncomfortable realization, isn't the end. It's the beginning of real freedom. Emma, a woman with a seemingly perfect life, knows this feeling well. On the outside, she had everything: career, money, status. But every Sunday night, anxiety crept in. Her soul ached, not because she lacked success, but because she lacked self. Her story is the story of millions. People who did everything right, but still feel empty. That emptiness is a message. You are not meant to live someone else's definition of a life well lived. Jung taught that yourself is not your personality or your achievements. It is the deepest, most authentic part of you, the part that existed before the world told you who to be. To reconnect with it, you must unlearn. You must peel away the false identities, the roles you play to fit in, the parts of yourself you've hidden to be accepted. This is not a path of addition. It is a path of subtraction. Every layer removed brings you closer to the truth. And it is in that truth that power returns. When you no longer need approval to feel worthy, you become sovereign. When you live from your inner truth instead of borrowed beliefs, you become grounded. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That is why self-inquiry, solitude, emotional honesty, and shadow work aren't luxuries, they are necessities. This journey is not glamorous. It's raw, it's sacred, and it requires deep spiritual wisdom. But the reward is priceless. You begin to live a life that finally feels like yours. Not perfect, not always easy, but real. And in that reality, you find peace, meaning, and a sense of wholeness that no external success can offer. Because when you know who you are, you stop performing. You start living. And that changes everything. Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? If so, share your story in the comments below. Your truth might inspire someone else to wake up too. And if you're just beginning to question it all, comment, "I'm ready to find myself," so we can walk this path of self-discovery together. 2. The persona, the mask we wear. Carl Jung called this social mask the persona. It's not who we truly are, but who we believe we have to be. We put it on early in life, smiling when we want to cry, agreeing when we want to protest, shrinking when we want to shine. At first, it's a tool for survival. It helps us fit in at school, be accepted by family, and avoid rejection from peers. But over time, we confuse the mask with our identity. We forget that it's a performance, not our essence. What begins as a protective layer becomes a prison made of smiles, silence, and unspoken dreams. Living through the persona can bring social ease, admiration, even success. But there's a quiet hollowness beneath it all, a sense that we're betraying something sacred within ourselves. We wake up and go through the motions, wear the right expressions, say what's expected, yet when we're finally alone, we feel empty. That emptiness isn't failure, it's the absence of self. It's the cost of being accepted at the expense of being real. Spiritual wisdom teaches that this disconnection is the soul's alarm. It's the sign that we've strayed too far from our inner truth. Who are you when no one's watching? Who would you be if you stopped chasing validation and started honoring your instincts. Jung didn't say, the persona is bad. It's necessary, but it becomes dangerous when we think it's all we are. Like a mask that's worn for so long it starts to feel like skin. The persona slowly replaces the soul unless we consciously remove it. Picture a woman known for always being strong, dependable, composed. Everyone turns to her for support, but no one ever sees her cry. Deep inside, she aches to be vulnerable, to rest, to be loved for more than her usefulness. But she's worn the strong woman mask for decades, and now she can't find the door back to softness. This is the tragedy of the persona. It doesn't just hide who we are, it makes us forget. And in forgetting, we suffer. The journey back to the true self requires courage. It begins with small moments of honesty, admitting you're tired when you usually say you're fine, expressing a need instead of pretending to be self-sufficient, choosing to disappoint others rather than abandon yourself. These are not acts of weakness, they are acts of spiritual strength. Each time you take off the mask, even briefly, you breathe a little deeper. Jung called this process individuation, the merging of all parts of the psyche, the light and the shadow, the real and the repressed into a whole and authentic self. Spiritual wisdom invites you to reclaim the forgotten aspects of your being, the curious child, the rebellious artist, the quiet observer. These aren't flaws. They're fragments of your soul waiting to return home. You don't have to burn the persona to the ground, but you do have to remember that it's not you. You are not the pleaser, the performer, the perfect image. You are the being beneath all that a soul longing to be seen, not for what it does, but for what it is. Did this video help you see your persona more clearly? If yes, comment, "I see the mask" below, so we can keep exploring the path back to your true self together. 3. The shadow, the repressed self. The shadow is not your enemy. It's the part of you that holds everything you've been taught to suppress. Your anger, your boldness, your tears, your truth. As a child, you learned what was acceptable and what wasn't. You were told to calm down, to be good, to stop crying, to control yourself. So, you pushed parts of yourself into the dark, not because they were wrong, but because they threatened someone else's comfort. And now, as an adult, those parts live underground, silently shaping your behaviors, reactions, and choices. You may think you're in control, but when you lash out unexpectedly, shut down in relationships, or sabotage opportunities, it's often your shadow acting out from the unconscious. These are not random outbursts, they are signals. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The shadow doesn't disappear by ignoring it. In fact, what you avoid in yourself becomes what controls you the most. That's why true transformation begins not with light, but with the courage to face your own darkness. This is the hidden path of spiritual awakening. It is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to shrink. Facing the shadow means walking straight into the feelings you've numbed, the memories you've buried, the truths you've denied. It's uncomfortable, raw, and often humbling. But in this discomfort lies your power. Because once you meet these parts with honesty and compassion, they lose their grip. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop collapsing into shame. You begin standing in truth. Reclaiming your shadow is an act of spiritual self-respect. It's choosing to see all of yourself, not just the parts that please others. Wholeness isn't achieved by pretending to be perfect. It's born from accepting that you're not. And in that radical acceptance, you find strength. You find peace. You find the version of yourself that no longer needs to perform, or please, or prove. You simply are. And that is enough. The journey is not linear. You'll meet resistance. You'll want to run. But each time you choose to stay with the discomfort, to feel instead of flee, you reclaim a piece of your soul. You become less afraid of your truth, less ashamed of your depth, less dependent on external validation. You become sovereign. That is what spiritual wisdom teaches us. Your power is not found in escaping your humanity, but in embracing it fully, with all its complexity, fire, and grace. Subscribe to our channel and join a community that embraces deep inner healing and self-discovery. Here, we explore the hidden parts of the self with compassion and courage. Remember, even your darkness holds light, and facing it is the first step toward true freedom and wholeness. 4. The true self, beyond persona and shadow. The true self is not something you create. It is something you uncover. Carl Jung taught that the self is the full expression of who you are, both the light you show the world and the darkness you try to hide. But for most of us, life begins by constructing a persona, the socially acceptable version of ourselves designed to gain approval and avoid rejection. This persona becomes a mask, polished, pleasing, predictable, but it is not who we truly are. Underneath it lies our shadow, the parts we suppress, deny, or disown. And yet, ironically, the parts we hide often hold the power we most need. We live in a world that rewards performance and punishes authenticity. From childhood, we're shaped to conform. Be good, be quiet, don't stand out. But the more we bury our raw emotions, our desires, our instincts, the further we drift from the soul's truth. Jung believed that to truly awaken to reach wholeness, we must go through the process of individuation. This is not self-improvement. It is self-reclamation. It is the courageous and often uncomfortable journey of reclaiming what we've abandoned in order to fit in. The shadow is not evil. It is simply unloved. There is a woman who appears successful in every conventional sense. She has the job, the respect, the lifestyle. But inside, she is numb, restless, disconnected. For years, she lived to please everyone else, parents, co-workers, society. She wore the mask so well, even she forgot who was beneath it. But one day, her soul refused to be silenced. Through self-inquiry, shadow work, and painful honesty, she began to see her anger not as a flaw, but as a voice that had long been ignored. She stopped pretending. She reclaimed her fire. And slowly, the real self before the mask began to rise. This is the essence of spiritual awakening. It does not come from escape or denial. It comes from integration. You do not have to destroy your persona or your past. You simply have to stop letting them define you. You bring the shadow into light, and with that, you unlock the forgotten parts of your being. Jung reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The moment you stop running from your inner truth is the moment you begin to shape your destiny from the inside out. The self is not an ideal. It is a reunion. When you embrace every part of who you are, your rage, your tenderness, your mistakes, your desires, you stop living for approval and start living from presence. You begin to act, speak, and choose from a place of deep alignment, not social conditioning. This is power. This is peace. This is the journey Carl Jung devoted his life to understanding. And this is the invitation before you now, not to become someone else, but to finally come home to yourself. Are you ready to meet your true self? The one beyond masks and shadows? If so, comment below. I choose wholeness to affirm your path toward inner truth and spiritual awakening. 5. Archetypes and the collective unconscious. Carl Jung believed that within every human psyche exists a hidden world, the collective unconscious, a deep reservoir of ancestral memory and instinctual patterns shared across all cultures and time. Within this collective realm live the archetypes, timeless, universal figures like the hero, the caregiver, the rebel, the sage. These aren't just symbols in mythology or literature. They are psychological blueprints that silently shape how we think, feel, act, and relate to others. Without realizing it, most people live their lives being unconsciously directed by these inner forces, repeating behaviors, choices, and emotional reactions that are not entirely their own. These archetypes are at the core of spiritual wisdom. They carry both power and danger power when they are made conscious and integrated, danger when they remain in the shadows. Take the hero, for example. This archetype can inspire great courage and resilience, but when it operates unconsciously, it may push someone into constant overachievement, burnout, and a need to prove their worth through struggle. Or the caregiver, so nurturing and selfless, yet when unchecked, can lead to codependency, emotional exhaustion, and a loss of self. We see these dynamics play out every day. People overworking to feel significant, sacrificing to be loved, rebelling to feel free, all while believing these are personal choices, not inherited scripts. Jung warned that when these archetypal energies go unexamined, we fall into autopilot living. We begin mistaking the role for the self. The danger here is subtle but profound. You wake up one day not knowing who you truly are beneath all the masks. Spiritual awakening, then, begins with the willingness to look inward, to name the archetypes that have been silently steering your life. This is not about rejection or shame. It is about recognition and reclamation. Because once seen, these patterns lose their power to control. What was once fate becomes choice. Integration is the next step, bringing these archetypes into conscious harmony rather than allowing one to dominate the others. The hero becomes a visionary who takes rest without guilt. The caregiver learns to serve without self-abandonment. The rebel channels their fire into building something new, not just tearing down the old. This conscious embodiment of archetypes is what Jung called individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole, where your life is no longer a collection of fragmented roles, but a unified expression of your truth. Ask yourself, which archetypes have you been living through? What patterns do you keep repeating, even when they no longer serve you? The moment you become aware of them is the moment you reclaim power. And that is the essence of spiritual wisdom, not to eliminate the forces within you, but to bring them into the light. To stop being ruled by the unconscious and begin living with intention. Every step you take toward that awareness is a step closer to your true self, not the self you perform for the world, but the one that existed before you were ever told who to be. If you're ready to explore the deeper forces shaping your life, comment below, "I awaken to my archetypes." Let this be your first step towards self-awareness and transformation. 6. The consequences of not individuating. If you avoid the journey of individuation, if you cling to your persona, deny your shadow, and ignore the deeper archetypes within you begin to fragment from your own soul. You may appear fine on the surface, wearing the perfect smile and saying all the right things, but inside, something feels disconnected. You feel anxious without reason, exhausted even when nothing major is happening, and empty even after moments that are supposed to bring joy. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That is not just a warning, it is a wake-up call to begin your spiritual awakening. When you live from your persona, the false self crafted to gain approval, you are surviving, not thriving. You play a role written by society, family, and fear, but it's not your script. Over time, the cost of this disconnect builds up. You keep finding yourself in the same arguments, falling into similar toxic patterns, wondering why healing never lasts. Depression, disconnection, and chronic dissatisfaction are not simply emotional issues. They are the soul's protest against a life unlived. This is the price of ignoring the inner work. It is the result of abandoning the path that leads to true integration and self-awareness. The shadow, the part of you that holds repressed pain, unclaimed power, and forbidden truths, doesn't disappear when ignored. It becomes louder through your relationships, reactions, and self-sabotage. Each time you avoid it, your emotional wounds deepen, and your potential remains trapped beneath shame and fear. These patterns aren't punishment, they are messages. Your suffering is sacred data. It tells you where you are still asleep, still split, still afraid of your own light. And unless you turn inward and face these hidden parts, you will keep mistaking your wounds for your identity. To ignore your archetypes, the timeless blueprints within the psyche, like the inner child, the hero, or the healer, is to forget your mythic purpose. You weren't meant to be a passive observer of life. There is a deeper script encoded in your soul that longs to be remembered. When you don't activate these energies, you remain small, reactive, and at the mercy of external forces. But when you begin the process of integration, you awaken a spiritual power that no one can give or take from you. This is the call of spiritual awakening, not just to feel better, but to become whole. To stop numbing, stop pretending, stop running. The moment you choose to see your suffering not as a curse, but as a doorway, everything changes. The depression begins to speak. The anxiety starts to guide. The repeated mistakes start to reveal your lessons. The real tragedy is not pain, it's a life unlived because you were too afraid to look within. But the truth is, everything you seek is already inside you, waiting to be reclaimed. And until you honor that, no amount of success, love, or validation will ever feel like enough. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights on how facing your true self can free you from cycles of pain and lead to a life of purpose and wholeness. 7. Becoming whole. The journey of individuation. True freedom isn't found in external success or social approval. It begins the moment you commit to becoming your whole self. This was one of the core teachings of Carl Jung, who believed that individuation, the journey of becoming psychologically whole, is the deepest task of the human soul. It's not about becoming perfect or admirable in the eyes of others. It's about uncovering who you are beneath the roles, labels, and expectations you've inherited. This path demands that you shed the masks you wear, confront your inner contradictions, and reclaim the parts of yourself you once disowned. Most people are not truly living. They're performing. They smile out of politeness, say yes out of fear, and live by scripts that were written for them long ago. But deep within, their soul whispers that something is off. That whisper is not a flaw. It is the call to wholeness. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Yet to walk this path, you must dare to be honest. You must question, who am I beneath what I've been taught to be? The overachiever, the people pleaser, the silent one, the fixer. These are not your essence. They were armor. They were how you survived. But now they have become cages. Reclaiming authorship of your life requires that you stop performing for approval and start listening to your truth, even if it disappoints others. Healing begins where pretending ends. Consider Ava, a young woman who had everything by society's standards: a high-paying job, admiration, structure. But she felt numb. She followed every rule and met every expectation, yet a quiet ache grew louder. She took a sabbatical, not to run away, but to meet herself. Therapy, solitude, journaling, and immersing in spiritual wisdom, including Jung's work, helped her realize that she had been living in fear. Fear of being unloved, unseen, misunderstood. She let go of the path that looked successful and chose one that felt true. She started over in holistic healing, aligned with her real essence. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was faking life. She felt alive. This is the heart of individuation, to confront the inner tension between who you are and who you were conditioned to be. It's not about adding more to yourself. It's about removing what's false, the fears, the masks, the compulsions. To become whole, you must embrace both your light and your shadow, the parts you're proud of and the parts you've hidden. Because real freedom doesn't come from becoming someone better. It comes from becoming someone real. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to meet yourself. Every moment of discomfort is a doorway to transformation. The resistance you feel often marks the exact area where your truth is buried. Begin there. When you stop outsourcing your worth, when you stop seeking permission to be who you are, life begins to respond differently. The outer world starts to mirror the integrity you've built within. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." And in that awakening, your life becomes a reflection of your soul's quiet power. If this message stirred something deep within you, leave a comment below. I am becoming whole. I choose authenticity, healing, and truth. Your journey matters, and you're not alone. As Carl Jung so powerfully taught, the journey to finding your true self is not about becoming something new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. The real work begins when you choose to face your inner truth, embrace your shadow, and honor your unique path. If this message spoke to you today, help us spread the light by liking this video, sharing it with someone who may need it, and subscribing to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos on transformation, energy, and awakening. Your true self is waiting, and we're here to walk that journey with you.